trend lines. Our learning targets for today are I can write and interpret an equation of a trend line, and I can find an equation of a trend line. First, looking at trend lines, when a scatter plot demonstrates a linear relationship, so a relationship that represents a line, we can draw a trend line to show the general pattern of the data. A trend line or line of best fit is a straight line that should lie as close as possible to the points of data in the scatter plot. The line should go through as many points that we can with about the same amount of points above the line and below the line. The line should tell us what direction that the data is going. For examples 1 to 4, we're going to determine whether or not the trend line that is drawn is a good trend line and explain. Looking at number 1, this is not a good trend line because our data is a positive correlation where this trend line is a negative correlation. We should have a trend line that would look something like this that tells us our data is continuing up. Number 2 is a good trend line because it goes through the middle of the data. It has about the same amount of points on top as it has the same on bottom. Number 3 is not a good trend line. While it tells us the trend of the data, all the points are either on the line or below the line, so it should be in the middle, something like this. And number 4 is the same as number 3. It is not a good trend line because, again, all the points are above the line instead of above and below the line. So I should have a trend line that looks something like this. If we want to write equations of trend lines, we want to choose any 2 points on the trend line and set up a ratio of rise to run to find the slope, or m. Then we want to look at the y-axis to find the y-intercept, or b, and then we use these to write an equation in slope-intercept form, which we should know what slope-intercept form is. That's y equals mx plus b. So looking at 5, 6, and 7, I want to write an equation in slope-intercept form for each trend line. Now, the easiest point to identify of any line is always my y-intercept. My y-intercept, remember, is the point where the line crosses the y-axis. That would be this point here at 8. So my plus in my y equals mx plus b would be 8. Now I want to find 2 points that are on this trend line. They don't necessarily have to be on the data set, but they have to be on the line. The easiest point to use is always use the y-intercept, so I'm going to use that point right there. And then the next closest point on my line would be this point here, 3, 7. Now finding the slope of these 2 points, I'm going down 1 and over 1, 2, 3. So my slope here, or my m value, is negative 1/3. That makes my equation here, y equals negative 1/3 x plus 8. Looking at number 6, again, I want to identify my y-intercept. That would be this point here, 100. So I'm going to have plus 100 in my equation. And now I want to identify my slope. Again, I'm going to use this point here, my y-intercept, because that's an easy point. Then looking for my next closest point would be here, that is on my line, which is 2, 125. Now creating this slope, I'm going up 1, but notice that my scale is by 25s. So in reality, this is going up 25 and then over 2, and my scale is just 2. So my slope is 25 over 2, which is 12.5. Creating this in my equation, I would have y equals 12.5x. If I have 25 over 2 instead of 12.5, that is perfectly fine as well. And lastly, looking at number 7, again, I want to identify my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 45, so I'm going to have plus 45 in my equation. And then I want to use 2 points, again, using my y-intercept. And then the next closest point would be here at 1, 35. I'm going down 2 spaces, but each time I'm going down 1, I'm actually going down 5 because my scale is 5. So this would be 10. And then over 1. So my slope is negative 10. Now writing this in my equation, I would have y equals negative 10x plus 45. Looking at number 8, to find the slope of the trend line below, Riley chose the points 180 and 230. Explain whether the points she chose will help her write the correct equation of the line. The points that Riley chose, 180 is this point here, and 230 this point here. Notice that these 2 points are not on the line, so these 2 points will not help her write the equation of the line. If we want to write equations of trend lines, the points have to be on the line. Again, they don't have to be points that are in the data set, they have to be points on the line. If we want to find the equation of this trend line, I'm going to use my y-intercept, that's that point right there, so plus 90, and then I'm going to use another point that's on the line. I could use this point here, 1 comma 70. So I'm going down 1, 2, which in reality by a scale of 10 would be going down 20 and then over 1. So my slope here is negative 20 because I have a negative slope. So y equals negative 20x plus 90 is the equation of my trend line. Number 9, which of the following scatter plots could have a trend line with an equation of y equals 2x plus 5? Notice here my 2x is positive, so I can throw away any choices that are negative, which would be D and A. Now my y-intercept is positive 5, so that would tell me that I would start at 5. Notice in B, I'm starting at 0, so I can throw away B, where C starts at 5, so C is my logical choice. Now looking at number 10, Miss Hamilton surveyed some of her students by asking how many minutes they spent studying for their math test and the score they made on the math test. The results are shown below. We want to find the slope of the trend line. So again, I'm going to use 2 points. So I'm going to use my y-intercept here of 0, 60. My next closest point would be here at 1570. So going up 1 is going up 10, and then going over 1, 2, 3, my scale is 5, so that's going over 15. So my slope here is 10 over 15, which if I simplify this would give me 2/3. Now it says, what does the slope mean in the context of the situation? So notice my x-axis is minutes studied and my y-axis is test score. So if I study for 2 minutes, then my test score will increase by 3 points. What's the y-intercept of the trend line? Again, this was a point that we used to find the slope of the trend line. That was 0, 60. So 60 is my y-intercept. What does this mean? If you study for 0 minutes, then your test score should be a 60. Now, putting this all together in an equation, remember equations of trend lines are just y equals mx plus b. I found my slope already, so 2/3 x, and then I found my y-intercept, so plus 60. So my equation, y equals 2/3 x plus 60, is the equation of this trend line. In today's lesson, we learned a trend line is a line that shows the general pattern of a scatter plot. To write an equation of the trend line, we can follow these steps. First, find the slope of the line, then find the y-intercept of the line, and write the equation in the form y equals mx plus b. That's a wrap on today's video. We'll see you in the next one.